Hello and welcome to our fourth 3D Design Key Stage 4 lesson. In today's lesson we're going to be continue on from our mark making lesson last week and looking at mark making on cardboard and different variations, different tools we can use to produce different types of marks on cardboard itself. Now for today's lesson you will need a piece of cardboard, obviously, a pencil, a ruler, something sharp like the end of a pin or a sewing needle like I've got, or anything you've got, maybe a compass that you can use to stab with, a pen like this one that you should have, and a pair of scissors. First of all, what I'm going to ask you to do is get yourselves a new piece of cardboard, and the one I've made is an A5 piece, so I'm going to go ahead and make another A5 example for you there. The dimensions of A5 is 15 centimeters by 21 centimeters. So I'm going to use the straight edge of my piece of cardboard. Now, whilst I'm doing this piece of cardboard that I've got is an old Amazon package piece of cardboard. It's quite thin. It's only got one layer of corrugation, as you can see from the edge. And it's just a nice piece of cardboard to use when we're doing some mark making. If you want to try and use an old cereal box or a recycled piece of cardboard or anything like that, or anything you can get your hands on, then that's fine. But I suggest that you use something slightly thicker, like this, not too thick. But see what you've got around your house and just make do with what you've got. So it was 15 centimeters, which is mine is just about there. 15 centimeters. I'm going to mark the top and I mark somewhere near the bottom somewhere. So I've got one straight line to join up. Whenever you're marking, it's best to draw two lines and draw those lines up. And by 21 centimeters. It doesn't have to be this dimension, but as long as you've got a rectangular piece of cardboard, it's absolutely fine. By 21. Well, it looks like I need to draw that mark a bit further down. And then join up my two pieces here. And I'm going to go ahead and cut those off very quickly. Once you've done that, you're going to segregate your piece of cardboard into 4 different sections. Sorry, 8 different sections. But splitting it 4 times. Try and make sure your cutting is nice and neat. Once you've cut off the edge, maybe you can refine your edge by just going over that line once more, making sure your cutting is exactly on the line. And even this little bit here, making sure we've got refined edges, cutting off those little frayed pieces is good practice, particularly in 3D design. When a lot of our marking, when I mark your work, what you've made in cardboard, a lot of it does determine the neatness of your edges. So make sure you spend some time neatening those up. Once you've done that, we need to find the halfway points. So half of 15 is 7.5. So if I mark 7.5 at the top, 7.5 at the bottom. Remember, always mark twice. And then draw a line between both those marks we've just made. And then I'm going to do the same lengthways. So across the side, half of 21 is 10.5. So I'm going to mark 10.5 there. Bring my ruler down, mark it near the bottom, mark 10.5 here. Join those both up. And then same again, we need to split this side into half and that side into half. So what have we got now? 10.5, half of 10.5 is 5.25. So it should be around about there somewhere. 5.12 and 0.5 of that one there. Down at the bottom, 5.25 again. And we've got our first sections there. And the same on the other side. We need to mark, it should be 10.5, yep, roughly. 5.25, 5.25 down at the bottom, and there you've got your basis of what we're going to complete today's lesson on. Now, the first one, I have to do it in this order, but you may as well. We're going to do some pinhole stippling. Essentially, all we need to do is grab our pin or our edge of our compass or something sharp, and we're going to repeatedly poke holes into the surface of this cardboard. Now, it is a repetitive process and it might take you a long time to do that one. To be fair, when I made my example I had about 4 or 5 pins stuck together and I was doing them all together. So you can cut corners like that. Bear in mind you might get a different effect. Also at this point, might add, in case you're doing this on your parents' nice dining table or something like that, maybe it's worth to get a scrap piece of cardboard, pop it underneath your work that you're working on, just so you don't stab through to your parents' dining table and scratch it and make a nuisance. If you've got a cutting mat, then even better, use that then please. So, that is your first one. This texture could be used for the surface of your fruits. Hang on, why is it not focusing in? Come on. Yeah, so the pinhole technique could be used to make, I don't know, the surface of an orange, or the pitted texture of an insect's skin, or anything like that really. The second one, which I've named pen punching, I couldn't really think of a better way to describe this, but literally you are punching it with a pen. You grab your pen and you're literally going to hammer the surface of the cardboard and create this hammered effect. Now, same again, think about what these sort of techniques could be used for. What would this be good when making something in 3D design? To me that's quite flaky, maybe like the texture of a shell or something natural like that. I don't know. It depends what you're making, but it's key to understand how cardboard reacts when it's maybe stabbed, when it's punched, etc. The fourth one down here, scissor scoring. Scoring is when you scratch the top surface of something. So if you grab your scissors, open them up. Be careful whilst you're doing this not to cut your own fingers. And what you're going to do is to score the surface of that cardboard. And depending on what sort of cardboard you have, you might get different effects. Same with all of these techniques. But scoring cardboard, it can be lovely for if you're making something like natural, maybe like a flower or like a stem of some sort. It'd be nice to add some texture to your work. Maybe if you're making an animal, maybe to make something furry, to give it that extra texture. Or even if you're just using it in a practical sense, you want to bend the cardboard round. If you score the cardboard, it makes it more flexible. Opposed to this one here that I've not scored yet, it's not very bendy, whereas this one bends fairly easily. So have a think about what different objects you can make with this technique. The one next to it, the corrugation reveal, all we want to do really is reveal some of that corrugation. Now on my one, I used a craft knife to make sure that that didn't go into my other one to ruin that, so I made a little box next to it. It's okay if you haven't got a craft knife yourself, maybe you could use your scissors to score a line in. But I just made a little box. So with corrugation, or when you're revealing the corrugation, you could maybe pick that apart. Because I've scored that area, the corrugation won't accidentally go into any other box. Because I've scored that area where it needs to go. Now when you are revealing some, I think it's nice sometimes not to peel off all of that corrugation. Sometimes you might want a nice neat corrugation exposed, but in some cases it's quite nice to leave bits on, or in some cases like I've done in my one, I've peeled off the actual corrugation itself and left the actual thin piece of cardboard on the edge. The next one, we're going to make some feathering. Obviously it's key in the name. You could design some feathers doing this. Feathers, not feathers, feathering. It's good to add texture to maybe like a bird's wing or a bird's feathers that you might be creating. But obviously what you need to do with this is cut long strips into the cardboard. The closer you cut them together, the more detail you're going to get. I mean, the wider apart you do them, you might want that effect for a particular design you're making. But obviously you can vary them, their thicknesses, if you want to. In my case, I tend to do them nice and thin, so if I've got a really thick one that I don't like, I could go ahead and chop down the middle of those really thick ones. Some of the pieces of cardboard might fall apart, might fall off, that's okay. What I did on my one as well, I brought them all back together again, and I added some texture to the edge of mine. See how these have sort of fenced off? A bit like a hairdresser might do. They might cut across it at the top diagonally to add some texture to the edge of your feathering. So you've taken off that top little bit, cutting at an angle, and that'll make sure that the edges of your feathering have a bit more texture included on them, so it's not that straight anymore. Okay, if you've got a really thick one, you could even do is add some tiny little details to that one all the way down it. If you're going to make a really detailed bird or feather, adding all these little tiny pieces might take you a long time, but that's where the extra marks are for those of you going for those high grades. Okay, now the last one I'm going to show you is ruler scoring. Now obviously we've got that natural corrugation like you can see up there, and what we can do is use our ruler to press into that dip and score through that dip. You should be able to pierce the top layer. And I'll save a little bit to put my label on down there. And you can get some really nice straight lines. What I did on my one over here is then run the ruler, rather than horizontally, vertically down there, and it almost creates this pitched roof sort of effect, like tiles on a roof maybe, or it could be again like a fur on an animal, or I don't know, anything. Also, that technique helps to make the cardboard bend a lot easier as well. So that one's really bending, really useful. So that was the one that I called ruler scoring. Now the last two sections I've left blank for you guys to complete yourselves. So maybe you want to find your own tools that you might have lying about the house. Maybe you've got a certain technique that you might want to try and do yourself. Maybe you've got a certain texture in your houses that you want to try and recreate. It's completely up to you. So that's going to be custom 1 and custom 2. These boxes are for you to experiment in. Rather than label them custom 1 or custom 2, try and give them names. So say for example you might have a craft knife in your house and you're trusted enough to use it. Maybe you'd want to try a scoring technique, like a cross hatch almost, across all of that box. That takes out a lot of the cardboard but gives me a really interesting texture as well. So I might want to label that craft knife cross hatching or something. So it's up to you. So just to recap, you guys need to make your own A5 piece of cardboard. Like I said, it can be like a parcel piece of cardboard packaging. It could be a cereal box, like some type of cardboard. But you still need to try each of these techniques on them. So once you made your A5 piece of cardboard, you need to try the pinhole stippling, the pen punching technique, the scissor scoring, the corrugation reveal, the feathering, the ruler scoring, and then 2 techniques of your own. Use different tools around your house, or you could use the same tools like you've got. You could use the scissors in a different way if you want, you could use a ruler in a different way. It's completely up to you, but make sure you label them so I can understand what you've done. Okay, thank you. I look forward to seeing your work that you submit. Thank you very much.